Have you been in love with something so much that you were completely lost in it? For me, it was this podcast. I started it in intentions of putting myself in a good place and for it to express myself. But I end up rolling with one thing, and it led me to chaos. The views, the feedback, and even my heart felt like there's something wrong. Uh, I was all over the place, to be honest. I started to feel that I was like a failure. Uh, I'm not gonna lie though, like there was one feedback that actually led me to the most important discoveries of my life. This is the unwrapping. It all started with a single conversation. I bumped into a 20-year-old who was mentioning, he was like, "Hey, I saw your podcast," and I was like, "Cool, yeah. What do you think?" So they told me, "Let me look into it more, and I'll let you know how I feel about it exactly," because I didn't really get the time to fully watch it. Anyways, they get into the podcast, they watch it. They came by the shop, and we had a good conversation. I'll be honest. I actually enjoyed it. So we sat there and they pinpointed a few things about the structure and pretty much releasing the first few episodes that there was no kind of like execution. I mean, there wasn't. It was like all over the place. So they pinpointed. They're like, you know what? I feel like you need to look into like structure. Uh, but there is more depth to that. Because I'm like, you know what? Structure. I'm just a little confused. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm pretty sure they had good points. So they started explaining. They're like, your ADHD is like noticeable. So it's like the ideas are brilliant, but you're not execute them in a proper way. Like you're not delivering them to the audience where they would understand. They'll listen for a little bit and then they'll lose their attention span. But yeah, we got into it. We spoke. We got really deep into it. Broke down. I'm taking notes. I left that part of my life where arrogance kind of took over. Sometimes when you're arrogant, you don't really, you kind of block your brain from absorbing any new knowledge. You kind of know it all. Anyways, we sat, it was kind of mean, but I'll be honest, like it led to a lot more other things, which I do appreciate. It was a very productive conversation. Actually, the way I felt, it actually intimidated me in a way that, podcasting is not something that's simple where you just go up and kind of structure it. It's been developed throughout these years, and it's all about execution. Audience. People might understand you, they grow up with you, but not the people that are strange or like new members. I'll be honest, but the one thing that kind of really stuck out, that really kind of gave me the whole idea that this conversation was productive, that individual, that 20-year-old, reminded me so much of myself. I'm very blunt, very honest. I feel like sometimes I'm too honest. I feel like, sometimes when I don't like to, I feel like if I'm lying to you, I'm trying to like sugarcoat anything to you, that I'm not being genuine. So I'm just kind of like, so if you trust me, I'm going to give you the best answer I could, even if it will hurt you, which is, and I had to work on that, and life changed that a little bit. But that's the one thing I saw in this 20-year-old. They had that brilliance and that bluntness, just pure honesty, Actually, I started being, I'm like, I'm so proud of them. This is something that, it's a very rare thing to have. after the conversation, I just sat there and I'm like, how was this conversation any different? And that's when I came up of like, there's so much of this person's characteristics that I had when I was a kid. And I feel like before life came and changed that individual, the previous me, it kind of created obstacles for me it created obstacles and it blocked me from moving forward in life. You kind of tend to mask a lot of things that you would think it's wrong, or you think the world think it's wrong. But in reality, I feel like, I encourage people to be themselves. Nothing was personal. I took it to what it was, and I appreciated it, and I thanked that person. Processed it, went to the lab, tried to research, look into things, and figure out what I got to do. And then I realized that the podcast didn't have an identity. And then it got to the point where I was, it started to get dark. That's like, when you're by yourself, you kind of tend to zone out, and then the monsters come out, your self-harming thoughts, starting to feel that you're a failure, that you're not executing things, and you're not really gonna get anything right. Bad neighborhood. That's how you enter the bad neighborhood. You zone out. That's where the bad neighborhood comes in. I mentioned it in a previous episode. That's actually part of the good structure, the good content that you can speak. That I mentioned, sorry. The bad neighborhood. And, you kind of start to say like very mean things to yourself. So it went from that, from like, ambition and trying to figure out the solution to like self abuse. Sometimes being in the bad neighborhood could be a good thing. Honestly, you start to memorize, figure out, you kind of tap into that past, speak to different monsters. And I remembered in college that I struggled a lot when it came to writing to like essays, and so like the professors would like correct it, but professors going through like God knows how many papers, so they didn't really have the time. So as soon as they start to read the essays, they came across certain points and it confused them, and they just left it alone. And they always labeled it as like grammar, like I had issues with grammar. Always had that issue. I never really truly had the grades, because I always think I would present good ideas, but it didn't translate, I guess. So one day I had a professor, good professor, very good professor, who kind of figured out what I was trying to do. So I remember the professor one time, I was in class, and I used to have this thing where I'd mumble a lot, like I didn't speak. I'd be like, oh, I wasn't clear. So he told me, what? Stand up. He made me stand up. It was like 30, 40 people in class, and he just like embarrassed the shit out of me. He said, listen, stop mumbling, sit down. I don't understand a word you were saying. I was embarrassed. Sat down. After the class, he took me aside and he told me, listen to me. This world needs you to be loud and clear. I mean, not mostly, you can't be screaming at people, but his message was for it to be clear. So he's like, if you want people to understand your message or kind of get an understanding of your message, just be loud, and clear about it. And I took it literally. So, the whole professional talking loud, clear, and still there weren't no. So points to him. At least he led me one step towards understanding where I had issues with. So that brought me to a lot of conflict, like internally. It was frustrating. I think I dropped out of college for that. I was just like, at this point, I'm done. I ended up living life on the basic terms and a whole lot happened. So I recently got diagnosed with ADHD. It has a lot of stigma on it, a lot of criticism. People think it's and started researching it and looking into it and understanding how that brain would be different. Why is it? What makes where the struggle would be, you know? And I started to like unlock a lot of things. I started to understand myself. I started to figure out how to stop certain elements. That brought me to a core conflict. And I started to understand that ADHD really was something I didn't know I had, and something that I need to look into. And I started researching, started looking into it, and come to find out, you know, because it was so frustrating for me. So like I would sit there and I'll like, the thoughts that are in my head are just like genius, you know, and I'm, you know, humbly a humble genius. But the problem was it was never executed. People never understood it. So like I always think, well, I'd say like, you know, people genius mind, but nobody understood my language that I spoke to myself, or how my thought process happened. And it was frustrating for me, you know, even when you have like a great point. But this is part of that learning process. Also this episode as well, you start to learn yourself. And I can encourage honest opinions too, feedbacks. I'd encourage people to be welcoming to feedback, especially if you have something in your building. I would say humble yourself. Hear people out, whether they hate you, love you, whether it's good or bad. Take it, take everything and evaluate. Sit down, break things down, and try to figure out what it is. You don't know. Sometimes honesty would hit in the right way, in the right time, and that's what happened to me. It came in, and it made me realize for the first time in my life that I wasn't dumb, and that I was a bad translator. And I started getting into it and researching. I used a lot of time researching, trying to figure this out. And it's a lot of things. I'm still perfecting it, but you know. So this journey has taught me a few lessons. The first lesson would be the difference between a wound and a scar. And I would say this is my scar. If you show somebody a wound, they would get scared. So show them the scar. Show them the battle scar. What made you the person you are today. I would say kindness. And not the kindness that makes you please people. I would say the kindness that you would need for that one person, which is yourself. To be kind to yourself. And the final lesson, that I'm not going to try to be a genius. I'm going to try to be a translator this time. And I promise you better episodes moving forward. And I do appreciate the feedback. Because the identity that I really want to uncover in this, I want to look at, I still want it to be about cars. But it's more like, you know, the ride, right? The memories, the process, the ride, life. And also, I would say, like the human engine. That's like the main engine, you know. Unlocking that one, figuring out, and why do we behave a certain way, and why is that? That I've noted that in the beginning of the podcast, the first episode, I would say, that I didn't want to be limited to one topic of vehicles. And this is not just going to be a car podcast. This is a place where we're going to look under the hood of the human engine and understanding what is it, what drives us, what pushes us, what takes us in life, what motivates us, and whatnot. At least, you know, Just like a car is complicated, I would say human is more complicated. He invented the car, so this podcast is going to be for the thinkers, for the artists, for the mechanics, the blacksmiths, talented people, hidden jewels, people that believe that they have a powerful brain but don't have the instruction manual. If you ever felt that way, this is for you. I would like to welcome you to the first real episode. Thank you for watching. The Unwrapping is just getting started. And thank you for being a part of it.